Good morning. Welcome to our guests and our board members. We are here for the October 21st CalHFA Board of Directors meeting. We have a full agenda today with several presentations. There are some materials as handouts in the control panel for your viewing. Also, there will be an opportunity for a public comment later in the meeting, and at that point, we'll give you some instructions. If you have any questions or anything, you can let us know by raising your hand. We also have information accessible on the CalHFA website. With that, I'll go ahead and introduce our chair, Mr. Michael Gunning.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. Good morning, everyone, and happy rainy morning. We all know we need the rain. It's beautiful to listen to. Why don't we do a roll call, Melissa?
Okay, Ms. Avila Farias. I didn't hear you, Ms. Avila Farias.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Gallagher.
Sorry, here.
Thank you. Ms. Gunn for Dr. Bassiani.
Here.
Mr. Gunning.
Here.
Mr. Hunter. I'm not hearing Mr. Hunter. Mr. Starr for Treasurer Ma.
Here.
Director Velasquez.
Here.
Secretary Castro Ramirez.
Here.
Mr. Prince. I'm not hearing Mr. Prince. Mr. Russell.
Present.
Ms. Sotelo.
Here.
Mr. White.
Here.
Mr. Silber for Mr. Acefa.
Here.
Ms. Miller for Department of Finance. Not hearing Ms. Miller. And Ms. Johnson Hall.
Here.
Okay. Chair Gunning, we have a full house and a quorum. We can get started.
Interesting full house, right?
Well,
Everyone.
pretty
I
close
know
to
what you
full
meant,
house.
Melissa. Tina, if you're ready to go, I don't have anything to add. We'll start with you.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Gunning, and good morning, Board of Directors, the public, and all who have chosen to spend your time with CalHFA this morning. It's only been a month since our last meeting, but we have been very busy. So I definitely have a few updates to provide to you today. First, I want to thank all of you who took time out for our individual meetings, all of you board members and members of the public. I got some really amazing feedback that I will be responding to in more detail. I will mention one important piece of feedback that has been heard loud and clear, and that is that you collectively desire to be more informed on CalHFA's ongoing programs and initiatives. So we are already working on a better process to do that. In addition to those valuable meetings with you all, I have also been doing meet and greets with various partners and stakeholders, including legislative members, affordable housing organizations, nonprofits, for-profit developer groups, CDFIs, mortgage bankers, and other financial institutions. Yes, I've been busy. But my goal for these conversations is to get an idea of where our partnerships are and where there are ways that we can expand and improve. These meetings have also been informing my vision for CalHFA, and that is for us to fill what I call the white space within the affordable housing and community development finance industry. I'll put it simply. We should not be building affordable housing with the same metrics and in the same manner that we did when I came into the industry in 1995. We need to be innovative. And I want to challenge you, the board members, to help us figure it out. That may mean working with CDFIs, collaborating with local governments, and it may mean working on ways that we partner with our sister agencies in a much more collaborative way. And it will likely mean leaning into preservation finance. So I want to share what I'm thinking and what we are exploring. And I'll just say, I'm going to give it to you, no chaser, don't be scared. There's much more to come on that, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Before we go any further, I'd like to say hello and welcome to Ryan Silver, who is joining us on behalf of our newest board member, Director of CEFA, who I had the pleasure of meeting. He was recently appointed to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, and Mr. Acefa comes to us from the city of Seattle, which has been very innovative in the affordable housing space these last few years. So I am excited to have him here and to share his extensive experience with us. I also want to share a great letter that we received from Congressman Jackie Spear regarding the Kiku Crossing, the development that you all approved at the last meeting. And the Congressman passed along her thanks for your decision and further noted that San Mateo is an excellent choice for the 225 unit complex because the city and the county governments are committed to assisting low-income individuals in that committee. That's the first letter I understand that we've had in a very long time, and it was well received by the staff. While it is exciting to hear that our efforts are being noticed, it is a true thrill to see the finished product, and even better to hear from the proud new residents of an affordable housing development. I got the chance to do those things on October 1st, when I spoke at a ribbon cutting ceremony for 5 new developments representing 288 units in Truckee, North Lake Tahoe region. A couple of CalHFA staff members and myself got to drive and tour that beautiful area and those complexes that we invested in. And we attended the ceremony, which included speeches from Treasurer Ma, local officials, one of the residents, and a representative from our sister agency, HCD. That capped off an important week of events that I also had the honor of joining Secretary Castro Ramirez and that Director Velasquez in Oakland to show our support for Governor Newsom as he celebrated the signing of more than 24 affordable housing bills, which was exciting for me because that was the first time I met the governor too, yay. In his speech, the governor spoke about the state's $22 billion investment in housing and homelessness, and even gave a shout out to the CalHFA ADU financing program, which we launched that week. On October 28th, I will be speaking at the California Association of Local Housing Finance Agencies annual conference. Looking forward to that. And so as you can see, it's been a busy month, but it's really great to get out and speak with so many people who share our mission of creating and preserving affordable housing. In that spirit of collaboration, I'm also happy to report that CalHFA has entered into partnership with the cities of San Diego and San Francisco, which will greatly expand our bond recycling program. We just want to thank those 2 cities for working with us to create those MOUs, and specifically send kudos out to CalHFA staff. And I want to thank Francis Marty, Mark Victor, Tim Sue, and Don Kadir. Big hugs to you guys for the love and support as you help bring this to fruition. These are really groundbreaking and innovative partnerships. That's white space. That's what I love. But it's also inclusive of partnerships between local and state governments. It makes it easier to finance more affordable housing in 2 of the state's most important markets, where affordable housing is clearly at risk at all levels. Finally, a brief update on the mortgage relief program. Drum roll, please. Since the last board meeting, the team has launched a dedicated landing page, which I invite you all to check out at www.calmortgagerelief.org. While we await approval of our plan from U.S. Treasury, this is where the general public can go to find the latest public information about the program, sign up for our e-newsletter, and also make inquiries that the California Mortgage Relief Program team is now responding to. Some good news on the timeline. We met with U.S. Treasury this week to kick off the review process. However, we still do not know when we can expect approval or when we can receive the full funding. To date, no other state has received approval for their plan, but I'm hopeful that CalHFA will be the first to cross over the finish line. So that's it for my comments, and I'll turn it back over to Chair Gunning.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm glad you're getting out and about. Awesome.
I'm tired. But having a lot of fun.
You can't get tired yet. We got a lot to do. I know Mandy's up next, and I think this is important. We've done this a couple times already on board governance training. So, Mandy, are you out there? There she is.
I'm out here. How are you doing?
Good. Excited for this. Waiting to hear you talk to us.
Okay. Well, good morning. Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm glad to hear a lot of exciting things happening over at CalHFA. I'm excited to get back there in person in a couple weeks, see all your lovely faces. I see a lot of same faces, a lot of new faces, so definitely looking forward to it. So I am Mandy Merchant. I'm a principal with Clifton Larson Allen. I've been with CLA for about 20 years. I specialize in providing audit and consulting services to housing finance agencies, HUD-assisted properties, and housing authorities. So, and then in my spare time, I do board governance training. So as Michael mentioned, I do every couple years do this for you all. Over the years, this comes from research on, me and my team talking with the finance team, learning about your board requirements. And then just my own personal experience. I'm a board member, I'm a vice president on a HUD project, then I'm also a treasurer at a library. So kind of can share my experiences too. So I'm just not getting this out of thin air. So, all right, so we're gonna get started. Let's go to the next page. So just objectives, just like briefly, we're just gonna, this is really gonna be all about you all today, all about the board of directors, kind of give an overall, like, what is your accountability and fiduciary responsibilities as being a board member? And then we're also gonna dive into what are the specifics for CalHFA. There's some specific things related to you all as an agency that we'll talk about. All right, so let's get into it. We're gonna turn the page, next slide. So fiduciary responsibilities. So I actually had a training myself many years ago, and we kind of went over these three. So 3 responsibilities. You've got duty of care, duty of loyalty, and duty of obedience. And basically, we're going to talk about the first 2 today, duty of care and duty of loyalty, and kind of just like what they kind of say, we kind of read it. So, obviously that you all are members and, you're looking out for duty of care, what's the best for CalHFA? You're using your knowledge and being responsible and ensuring that, you're looking at everything with, prudent, as a prudent person would, as they like to say. Duty of loyalty is basically just putting the interests of the organizations in front of personal interests. So that is kind of like the basis for the 2 of those, and we'll kind of go into a little bit more detail in the subsequent slides. And then finally, duty of obedience is act with fidelity within the bounds of the law, generally to the organization's mission. And overall, what that one is saying is just kind of try as best you can to know the laws and the rules and everything that CalHFA operates in and within the state of California, to have that in the back of your mind as you're providing information and making decisions as part of the board. So we're going to change the slide over. Okay, duty of care, kind of going through everything. Now I know the first one is very hard in our busy lives these days. When you commit to a board and you're going to be part of a board, the biggest thing is just making sure that you are able to attend meetings. And not just be there and, just be on screen or maybe hiding in the background, but make sure you're participating. I know as a board member, I get busy sometimes. I'm running home, I'm shoving food in my mouth and trying to get to the screen. And, and I always step back and go, stop, you got to do this. You have to be engaged, you got to participate. You need to know what's going on so that you can contribute and really put the best foot forward for the agency. So just keep that in mind. Just be present and be engaged. Try to shut things down and just, pay attention as much as you can. With that said, when you are engaged, just make sure you're scrutinizing the work of committees that are kind of have authorization to make decisions of the board, excuse me. So what that means is that as, obviously not every board member is involved in every single decision, but just make sure you're asking questions, asking questions of management, asking questions of third parties that are coming in, asking questions of the committees. I feel that that's something I like to do a lot to make sure really when you're asked to vote that you really can say aye. You're just not saying aye because everyone else is saying aye. Make sure you understand the information. And if you don't, ask for additional time or ask for a little bit more. Make sure you're participating in board actions. If you are there, you're responsible for knowing that board material prior to the meeting. Again, CalHFA I know does a really good job of getting information out to you all, a week ahead of time. So just making sure you're just carve out an hour of time just to kind of look through that. So you can, when you show up, if you're voting on the board minutes, if you're voting on an action item, you are able, to vote. And if you're not able to vote, just make sure you're abstaining. Know the books and records. We'll talk about that a little bit when we kind of talk about the financial statements. And then, at the end of the day, you're really protecting the organization's assets for any kind of restrictions or legal requirements. So again, one of the things we do as part of the audit is just making sure everyone that's on the board is equipped to be on the board, so making sure that if you're a board member, you're not taking on too much that you can't be familiar with. So, and if you aren't familiar with everything of CalHFA, make sure you're doing a little bit of your homework to know, what kind of restrictions and legal requirements there are involved for CalHFA. So, okay, we're going to turn the page. Okay. So duty of loyalty. And then for those who know me from doing this in prior years, I always like to talk about the conflicts of interest. There's another slide I really talk about it. But just making sure you're following your written policies on conflicts of interest. We'll talk about that a little bit. Never ever, divert from the corporate business opportunity. So the agency always comes first. And that, that's protecting CalHFA and yourself. Just be careful. I mean, everyone lives in the state of California. You all do tons of business in the state of California. Just making sure there's no murky water you're getting into, that there's no organization you work for, have a family member and has some dealings with CalHFA. So just keep that in mind. Just, adhering to the rules of IRS, regarding self-dealings, again, just kind of, just not doing things that benefit yourself. And then, just be very careful about taking gifts. You really shouldn't be taking gifts at your agency. You have a requirement if you take, I think Claire might shake her head, I think over $25, you have to report it. If I still have that number right, but it's just better off not to take gifts. Just don't do it. The paperwork is not worth the time. So just to keep that in mind. Okay, so let's turn the page. So this is a new and improved slide that I put together. And really, a lot of times people wonder, like, what is the difference between governance and management? And, it might seem kind of a silly question, but I think there's sometimes it gets a little gray where some boards that I present to might get a little bit too into management, or management won't let the board in. So this is kind of like, I think, a nice slide to just kind of like summarizes it for everyone. So obviously the governance, organizational oversight, big picture, looking at everything from a big picture for the agency, working on the strategic direction, ensuring that there's transparent decision making, accountability, accountability for the agency to the public and everyone else that you report to. And then overall, just ensure the future and the mission of the organization, make sure there's succession there, that the organization is going to continue into the future. So that is like, if you kind of see like the big umbrella, that's our big umbrella for the governance. And then obviously management, going down to the day-to-day decisions, internal controls, developing them, making sure they're properly in place, making sure there's, a good segregation of duties, ensuring there's accounting policies, HR policies, all that kind of good stuff that kind of rounds out the organization. Making the day-to-day management decisions. And then the last two, which is kind of like when you kind of shift into the world of your financial presentation, is making sure that those financial statements that you're getting on a quarterly basis from the finance team are fair. And then at the end of the day, making sure that you guys have programs to prevent and detect any kind of fraud. You always want to make sure that's still in place too. And it kind of all rolls together. If you got good internal controls, you got policies, you're making decisions, and all that hopefully is helping to prevent and detect the fraud from happening. So let's go to the next slide. So just real quickly, and this is just now to get the specifics of CalHFA. So you guys do have your own specific kind of rules. So we'll go to the next slide. So open meeting requirements. So I'm sure everyone's noticed in the past couple years, the meetings being conducted for the public, giving advance notice. I mean, obviously you guys have a very advanced schedule posted for, for the year. There is no more board minutes. We are always filmed. So hello to everyone out there that's watching this YouTube right now. Any of these meetings can be watched later on YouTube. Fun fact, as part of the audit, we make a associate every year watch all your YouTube videos and write down notes of important things that you all talk about. So just think about that poor associate that's doing that every time you guys have one of those meetings. So I do. So I hope they take good notes. Only voting on matters properly noticed on the agenda. So, it's not just kind of like when you guys come into these meetings, everything's very structured, which is a requirement. Outside of these meetings, you all should not be congregating together and talking about CalHFA business. So just keep that in mind. That's almost in every city you go to kind of has that kind of thing. Closed sessions are limited. And then, the emergency meetings can be had 10 days, under 10 days. So I don't know if you guys have that much, but that is a open meeting rule requirement out there. So, all right, let's go to the next slide. This is my favorite slide. So duty of disclosure of economic interest.
This is Preston. Can I ask a quick question, Mandy?
Sure,
I don't think we have ad hoc committees, but if we have ad hoc committees, can the conversations of what happens at an ad hoc committee only be with the members who are there? I guess because you say you can't talk about things outside when we congregate. I'm just kind of curious if ad hoc committees are created, what's the rules around them?
I don't know. I always feel like most of the meetings are like there's some sort of, you're together. I don't know. Claire, are you familiar with that for ad hoc?
No, Mr. Prince, I don't believe we have any ad hoc committees at this time outside of the Audit Committee and the Executive Evaluation Committee, which not really ad hoc, I don't believe.
They're not ad hoc, yeah.
Yeah, so we don't have those. Is there some part of your question that we're not?
No, I was just kind of curious about ad hoc committees, what's the rules that govern them? So that's totally fine. I was just, it's not a squirrel, but kind of potentially Tina might create an ad hoc committee for us. And I just want to make sure I understand what the rules are.
Well, Preston, maybe we'll have a new bullet next year. Okay, we'll work on that. I'll make a note. Okay, great. Okay, so duty of disclosure of economic interest, or basically any kind of related parties. So just it's very important as all of you as board members, and again, in your work life, your personal life and everything, just ensuring that you're completing that annual Form 700 and just disclosing anything that you have that could, hopefully you don't have any relations, like any related party relationships, but just making sure that is disclosed. That is just very important out there. You just don't want something to come up, as part of, being on the board, and then, something happens and, something's approved, and then you find out down the road, oh my God, like, my uncle or my brother was involved in that entity also. And then all of a sudden, it gets out into the paper, and then, it's just one of those things that kind of, you just don't want to get in that situation. So it's just very important that as you fill out this Form 700, it's just not something you just like jot your name down, but just make sure you really think about it. Where could anything in your life really kind of spiral and kind of mingle in with CalHFA? So that's always my kind of horse someone. Every once in a blue moon, I work on jobs where we find a board member that just, and usually they don't know, somehow we make a connection or it comes up and, they're like, oh, and nothing's, I can't tell you some big scheme or some, fraud out there, but it's just something, it just never looks good, when you kind of hear about related parties. So, but, and then if you know something, let's just say something happens, just make sure you're abstaining, like talk through with everyone at CalHFA, make sure it's okay, bring it up. 9 times out of 10, it's probably okay, but you just have to usually abstain yourself from some sort of vote. So, Okay, oops, I'm behind this. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So next slide, kind of shifting a little bit over here, just kind of like, there's a lot of responsibilities for the board, but obviously me being the auditor, the most important thing to me is your financial oversight. So, financial oversight and reporting responsibilities. Obviously, the board is going to be really big involved in, kind of the audit process. As part of the audit, we do communicate with somebody on the board each year. We talk to them through the audit process, what's our plan for the audit, any of our concerns. We've asked the board member, Mr. Gunning, we ask him, does he have any concerns for us that we should be looking into as part of the audit? We talk about fraud. We do a lot of things. So kind of getting the board engaged at the front end. Obviously, he's your representative. And then obviously working with the financial team, kind of, to work through the audit process. But, kind of thinking throughout the year on a quarterly basis, you're getting financial statements from the finance team that you're reviewing, looking at. And so, at the end of the year, we are, the board, us and the finance team are all working together then to ensure that these financial statements that are eventually issued, are accurate and fair. So definitely as part of your fiduciary responsibility, ensuring that you're reviewing these financial statements. You'll see me later on next year. We'll be presenting those statements at some point to show those for the 6/30/2021 audit. So, all right, so let's get into your 2 advisory committees. So let's go to the next slide. All right. So as of right now, you do have 2 advisory committees that we're going to kind of touch on. I know for the individuals that are on these teams, I'm assuming all these committees right now are full and everyone's engaged and, I know Audit Committee, Executive Evaluation Committee, I know you guys should be all out there. So let's just go over your responsibilities. So let's go to the next slide. We're going to talk about the role of the Audit Committee first. So the role of the Audit Committee, a couple things, we actually got 2 slides kind of going over. So as part of the determination of the auditors, making recommendations for the selection and retention of the auditors and working with the finance team and ultimately making that decision. If there is any audit findings or management letter comments as a result of audit procedures and the reports issued, reviewing those audit findings and, making sure, management is, doing a corrective action. Like, what are they doing to ensure these findings don't happen in the future? Obviously reporting to the board. I know on my one board, I am in the finance and audit committee team. So, every month I have to, report back to the board what we're talking about. And then finally, reviewing and updating the committee's charter annually. So, I haven't seen the charter in a couple of years. So I'm assuming the audit committee has been doing that every year. So I see a head shake by Michael Gunning. So I'm glad to hear that.
Today.
Good, perfect. Okay. So you guys are on target with that one. So let's go to the next slide. And let's talk about the role of the Executive Evaluation Committee. So for everyone that doesn't know all this yet, obviously we're going to evaluate Executive Director and compensation of key exec management. So definitely an important role for this committee to keep an eye on that so that, the salaries and benefits and everything is fair and accurate for them. Recommend the evaluation. So after that committee meets, reporting it back to the overall board so a vote can be done. Any kind of compensation policies and procedures, to attract and retain talent. And then obviously succession. And succession is very important, throughout every single industry these days, is making sure that there is a succession plan and not just, in the executive director, but, everyone and, in the top, top tier and then even down below that there is, people that keep CalHFA going and doing all these wonderful programs that CalHFA is doing for the public. All right, so next slide. All right, so some audit committee best practices. Obviously it would be really nice that the perfect person on the audit committee has got governmental financial reporting and auditing. So that's great. I think we have a check mark on one of those people. So I think you guys have that. Having at least one financial expert, which is always great. Having enough people to have a discussion, you know, you guys suggest a minimum of 3. My finance committee that I'm on right now, it used to be just me. So it's just me and the executive director talking. So I finally recruited like 2 people. So now we have like a discussion. So it's nice. So I would say minimum of 3 is a very nice number. And then obviously overall, just exercising professional skepticism. That is a big word, professional skepticism in the audit world. Whenever you hear the terminology audit, you always have to exercise professional skepticism in practice. Okay, a couple more. So if we're going to turn the page before we get into some new stuff this year from some of my board members that have been here for a couple of years. Oh, that's good. Okay. All right, so this is just trying to, I'm trying to talk up social media, everything that's going on. I don't know how much everyone's on social media and following what's going on. I'm always on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, I'm just keeping up, every news thing except Apple Plus. I haven't broken down and paid the $9.99 for Apple Plus yet. And the other day there was a story that said, where did all the workers go? And I was like, oh, I almost broke down and bought the $9.99 Apple Plus to find out where they all went. So I'm sure some of you can feel it trying to find workers these days. So if you flip the page, just a couple things about digital imprint, kind of wanted to go over because this is, next slide, please. I think a big thing going on right now with the benefits and kind of like, kind of what I'm saying is that the benefits and pitfalls of social media, first of all, to keep in mind, it's been coming up over like where I'm, again, a board member. But, with this, let's just think about social media right now. Like, what are the benefits of it? Obviously, the biggest thing is this open communication between CalHFA and the community. I think right now, Director Johnson, I think this is just so great right now to blast all your programs going on, the ribbon cuttings you guys are doing, getting involved in the communities, talking with these, partnering up with San Diego and San Francisco, the cities, all that kind of stuff, just blasting. And I do follow you guys on LinkedIn, which is another great site. I follow everything you guys are doing on there. So it's a great tool to be out there. Able to reach a larger audiences. So as you launch these new programs, you're able to get to many people as you can. And I'm sure you guys are doing stuff where you're trying to reach as many people, find followers so you can blast this stuff out. Because this is where everybody is these days. They really are. If they're not on, I guess the other new thing is right now is YouTube, putting out little blurbs like, 30 second to a minute and a half of small videos on YouTube or on TikTok. Still not good at TikTok. I wish I had a knack for dancing, but I'm not there yet. But all that stuff, kind of getting that out there, It also makes it easier to kind of manage your reputational risk, because since you are able to have this social media, you're allowed to kind of get out there and get in front of things, address things early on. So I think, there's a lot of stuff about social media that, I think is really important. And as board members, I know on my behalf, like I'm always forwarding and, reposting anything from my library and the project I'm part of. So there's a lot of great stuff, especially with my library. I got to do a lot of fundraising. So if I need to, get my friends and family to chip in, I'm like, reposting everything. But it's really good in all avenues of using that. So, and I think the same thing I remember, we flip the page, is then there's also the pitfalls. And, it's sad that we have to watch everything we do, but we really do. We really have to be careful that as we use the social media, at the same time that we're ensuring that, whoever we are representing, so as everyone on the board is representing CalHFA to ensure, that, everything you're doing, there's a level of transparency, that you're representing CalHFA like in a professional way, that you're not, kind of putting anything out there that you wouldn't not want out there. And I think number one, the first bullet point up here, also, you got to be afraid about maybe stuff leaking prematurely or by accident. So keeping an eye on that when you have any kind of, social media or like new programs. So just making sure as a board, if management's gonna issue have a new program come out, you're not like posting it before they do. Don't take that and like forward that out until they're able to handle it. And then I think, with the new level of transparency, I made a note down because I was like, the Raiders used to be you guys, so maybe I shouldn't say this. You might get offended, but I'm just gonna say it. The Las Vegas Raiders, that coach, his emails. So, just, be careful out there, whatever you're doing from a social media, just make sure you're representing CalHFA, represent yourself personally, and just ensuring, be careful what you put in writing. Sometimes I think it's easier to pick up a phone and talk to everyone about it. So that was a little new slides this year, just because social media is just becoming so big right now, and the use is out there a lot more. So, all right, so then the next slide, the last couple slides, if everyone remembers, every year I kind of bring you some fraud, what's going on in the fraud world, this big ACFE global study. I am sad to report they did not put out a 2021. I'm kind of upset with them, because I'm like, what were you doing? You were just by your computer. You could have been researching this. So, but I did go back through and pull some slides, pull a couple new ones. But just a reminder, lastly, for the board, you never want fraud to happen to you. So the only way for it not to happen to you is to think about it and how do you prevent it. And just having, as we said before, professional skepticism and, just questioning things and just being aware, like, how can it happen? I can't tell you how many meetings I have with management, with staff, with board members, and we're required to have fraud meetings every year. And I say, how can fraud happen at your agency? And everyone's like, it can't, never can. And fraud happens all the time. And how much does it happen? Let's turn the slide. So in 2020, and this is a big study that they do, looking at, fraud cases that occurred. So, had 2,000 cases of fraud. And of those 2,000 cases of fraud, $3.6 billion of money lost because of fraud. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money out there that could be fraud. And here's just a couple. I'm not going to read through all of these. I got them up there on for you. But, like, I always like for people to know, because everyone's like, oh, the auditor, management, everyone should be able to, detect this. The number one fraud that happens, that's the hardest to detect, is corruption. Once it gets to corruption and there's multiple people involved, it's just, it's a lot harder to detect. So, and so how do you detect corruption? So corruption is just, knowing your people, having policies and procedures, having, you can't have related party, documenting related party transactions and, any kind of relationship, stuff like that. So that's very important. Most of the time, it says CFEs estimate that organizations lose about 5% each year of fraud. So that's 5% of revenue each year is lost to fraud. So that's basically, you don't know about. So taking your, your revenue right now and assuming 5% somehow has gone out the door somehow that you don't know about. Medium loss of the case is about 125,000, and then average loss is, about 1.5. So just a lot of kind of good information. I just kind of like to put this out there just for, just kind of think about it, for being on this board, if you're on other boards, if you own companies, like, where could something go wrong? Where could someone possibly perpetrate a fraud? As we call them, the perpetrators, where do they find out when it happens? So let's go to the next slide. So this one, who commits the fraud? Sorry, management, it's you guys. Level of authority. So you can see 41%, is employees. So it's more employees try to do it, but usually it's only about 60,000 of lost medium, revenue. And then, if an owner executive, which, who controls the owner executive mostly or helps keep them in line is the board. So you have a very important role. And that's usually where you have the more significant loss, you're saying about $600,000. So just kind of want to put that in perspective where you kind of see the occupational frauds, who usually commits them. Okay, next slide. Okay, and then just a couple of things on here. It's so funny, but telephone hotlines and emails, whistleblowers. I mean, we have the Facebook whistleblower right now. Whistleblowers are still a big thing, and whistleblowers only feel comfortable if someone makes them feel comfortable. They need to know that if somebody comes forward in CalHFA because they have, say something, that they feel like they'll be protected. So you got to make sure you kind of have that, outlet for CalHFA employees. if you're worried about something like this happening. So it is something to kind of keep in mind. And as you can see too, 43% of schemes were detected by tips. So we always hope it's the auditor or somebody else, but unfortunately it's never us. It's always someone internal detects it. All right, next slide. Yeah, I always like this slide too. Men commit more fraud, so don't look at the ladies. 72% are committed by fraud by the men. So sorry, but I'm just reading the facts. Just reading the facts out there. And then kind of right here too, just talking about the different departments are kind of more involved. You know, it's nothing really like glaring. Obviously, accounting and operations a little bit more because, you know, we do have more access to the money and able to kind of have something like some kind of scheme perpetrated. All right, and then one more slide. I know you guys are getting anxious. Okay, and then again, here it is. How is occupational fraud initially detected? Just wanted to kind of show this on a graph. You can see the top one is tip, you know, 43%. You know, the next closest is internal audit with 15%. As I mentioned, where am I? Yeah, I'm down the half, 4% external audit. So it really is, you know, having that tip line, you know, people kind of able to report anything. And, you know, it's really important too in your programs too, you know, ensuring that, you know, depending what type of programs you have, that there's any kind of outlet for anyone to report any kind of program fraud either. Also. All right, so last slide is just questions. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I know that was a lot of information. I was trying to stick to, you know, get through this 30 minutes. Hope I did. Hope you all enjoyed it. Anyone have any questions for me?
I'm just glad women steal bigger amounts. You know, so often we don't think.
Oh, we lost you. Mr. Gunny, you're muted.
From board members or questions from board members?
This is Preston. I just wanted to say thanks. I love the last few slides particularly, but the overall training is really helpful. So I think it's great. I actually took a couple of pictures of some of your slides and sent it to our internal auditor, for example, saying like, look, internal audits are really important. So I think it's really helpful.
No, I like this. I like this presentation. I think it's fun to do this one. It's always nice to kind of like, you know, kind of do some research and educate everyone. And it makes me learn more, makes me a better board member. So thank you for letting me teach you.
Great, thanks, Mandy.
Okay, well,
Melissa is coaching me, folks, and two things. We did have an audit committee meeting this morning, and I'd like to, Delilah, ask if you would just report out to the group briefly on our meeting.
Sure. We had a great agenda. We heard from Rebecca Franklin on the SLAY report, as we call it, and had some really great ideas about reporting back to the larger board so that we can ensure that, you know, we have some creative thoughts, you know, and input.
Still there?
I don't know why it keeps going off. Can you...
No, we hear you. Keep going, Delilah.
Okay, so so Tina suggested that we establish a report back to the board and formalize our communication regarding the SLAY report. Secondly, we also heard from our cybersecurity coverage and the folks in, you know, in our information group that, you know, we're doing very well in terms of cybersecurity and making sure that we're monitoring all the, you know, all the various threats out there. And I suggested that we do a high-level report back to the board so that the board can see exactly how well our systems are performing. And then lastly, we did take a look at the charter and have made some suggestions around additional membership to the Audit Committee, as well as just increasing the frequency of our Audit Committee meetings by just one more meeting a year. We will coordinate with Ms. Hall and Chair Gunning about a report back to the board suggesting that we increase the membership of the committee itself. So more to come on that one.
Awesome.
The committee members were saddened to hear that after 30 years of working at CalHFA and being very informative and robust controller is actually retiring in the next month or so. So I'm gonna, hopefully Tina will be doing something recognizing her 30 years of service to CalHFA, but we were sad to hear that Lori's gonna be retiring. So that covers our.
Thank you, Delilah. And Lori, she helped me on audit committees, and I hope you at least get to benefit from her knowledge for the next couple months, Delilah, before she leaves, because she certainly has a wealth of knowledge.
She does.
Good stuff. Frances, I'm going to fondly designate you as the most interesting man at CalHFA with that beard you got going, my friend.
Thank you.
But I'm going to beg upon you. It looks like we have quite a few members who have to leave a little early today. So, Frances, can we just move up to the reports on the projects? And if you would hold off on your legislative update till we get through Kate's presentations, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, friend. So with that, Kate, in order to speed up, we're going to move to item 6.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We hear you well for College Creek.
All right. We will start with College Creek this morning. Good morning, Chair Gunning and members of the board. For the record, my name is Kate Ferguson. I'm the Director of Multifamily Programs here at CalHFA. I'm here today to present 2 deals to the board. The first is College Creek Apartments. We are presenting these loan packages to request final approval of the permanent and MIP loans. Standing by to answer questions on this first deal, College Creek, are Kevin Brown, our CalHFA Housing Finance Specialist, Sheena Coe, our CalHFA Credit Officer, and Darren Bravowski of USA Multifamily Development, who is the developer of the property. So next slide, please. College Creek Apartments is a family new construction mixed income project consisting of 3-story walk-up, 2 3-story walk-up and 1 4-story elevator service building built at grade. The project is 164 residential units, 64 1-bedroom, 57 2, 43 3-bedroom units. The rents are restricted between 30 and 70% of the Sonoma County area median income, and the property is located in Santa Rosa, Sonoma County. The 10% of the units will be restricted at 30% AMI, 26% will be at 50% AMI, 26% will be at 60% AMI as well, and 37% of the units will be restricted at 70% AMI. Obviously a strong mixed income unit mix. Additionally, there will be 272 parking spaces at the site, which will be reserved for exclusive use by the tenants, their guests, and on-site staff. Next slide, please. CalHFA is proposing a $28,140,000 permanent first lien loan with a term of 17 years, amortized over 40 years, at an estimated interest rate of 3.95%. This interest rate is inclusive of a 25 basis point underwriting cushion that we use for our internal underwriting. In addition, a $4 million MIP subsidy loan will be provided with a term of 17 years at a simple interest rate of 1% or the applicable federal rate, AFR, in effect at the time of MIP closing. The Sonoma County Community Development Commission, say that 5 times quickly, will provide a seller carryback loan in the amount of $4.4 million to cover the land cost. Tax credit equity of approximately $28 million will be provided by Bank of America, which is also the construction lender, and the developer will defer approximately $3.7 million in developer fee during the construction period as additional cushion. Next slide, please. College Creek is located at 2150 West College Avenue in the city of Santa Rosa, Sonoma County. This is northwest of the Bay Area and is considered part of the Northern Geographic Region at CDLAC, for those of you that are interested in that information. The project received $33.1 million in bond cap from CDLAC, approximately $24 million of 4% federal tax credits, and $6.3 million of state tax credits from TCAC, all received in the August 11th round, August 11, 21. Next slide, please. The site is 5.79 acres located on the south of West College Avenue between Stony Point Road to the east and West College Place to the west. The site is located within a low resource area. Per the TCAC HUD opportunity map, the project is located close within less than a 2-mile distance to grocery stores, public transit, parks and recreation, schools, a public library, and retail. Next slide, please. I'm trying to go quickly, Chair Gunning. So, the existing site consists of a vacant former Sonoma County Water Agency administrative building and is currently owned by Sonoma County Community Development Commission, as I said. The structures will be demolished during construction period as part of the development plan. The Phase 1 environmental report dated March 10th of 21 concluded no additional investigation was needed. However, the report includes scope findings regarding groundwater management, asbestos materials within the existing structures, an updated Phase 1 final groundwater management plan, asbestos mitigation plan are all required and are subject to CalHFA, the construction lender, and the investor approval prior to closing. Remediation of all these findings is a part of the construction plan and budget. Evidence of clearance of all findings will be required prior to CalHFA closing either of their loans at the permanent period. Next slide, please. We wanted to point out a few strengths related to this. One is certainly the experience and partnership we've had with the developer, USA Properties. There's very strong local support with, I'm going to call it SCCDC because I've said it twice and it's a tongue twister, which is the seller, and they are providing a carryback loan of $4.4 million, which represents the appraised value of the land. There are almost $4 million in developer fees to be funded at perm loan, which provides cushion during the construction period. And we have the tax credits generated by the project fund approximately 41% of the total development costs and tax credit equity, which is wonderful. Next slide, please. While there are no underwriting exceptions related to this project, our staff report identifies 2 potential weaknesses. The first is related to Phase 1 findings, which I've already covered. All will be mitigated and subject to CalHFA approval at perm loan closing. The second is the project economics. The project economic exit analysis, which we always do, shows that $2.4 million of the MIP loan will remain outstanding at the time of the loan maturity. This is not an exception to policy, given that the primary source of repayment of both the first loan, the first lien loan and the MIP loan is refinance of the project. To the extent any refinance would be insufficient, which is very doubtful given the strength of the market, a general partner contribution would be required to pay off that final MIP amount. Next slide, please. And I think that's the entirety of the presentation. I have staff on the phone to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Preston, I have more of a comment than a question.
Yes.
Go ahead, Preston.
Yeah, so I think 10% of the units serving ELI is not enough. And I bet you it meets obviously the TCAC and even our expectations and our requirements. I guess what I really like us to do is to start thinking about how do we start producing units at 30% of AMI. I don't know Sonoma County, but I imagine that they're nowhere close to the RENA goals of meeting the ELI housing production, because very few communities, if any, I look to someone from HDC to correct me, are actually meeting that. City of San Jose, I think, has a goal of 40% of all affordable housing production serves ELI units. Here at my agency, we're at 45% of ELI and permanent supportive housing. It seems to me we have a huge number of people who are in crisis, and I get missing middle is really important to us and the whole continuum, but 10% growth is not enough in my mind of ELI units. And I also think strongly that the vouchers aren't growing. We do have this proposal that seems like it's going to die on the vine in DC about growing vouchers. Just as a side note, my agency over the last 20 years has only had about 6% growth in the number of vouchers allocated to us. The emergency housing vouchers almost equals the number of vouchers that we've received over the last 20 years. So it's a great start. But we don't have vouchers. All we're really doing is moving vouchers around like chairs on the Titanic. We're not growing the number of units serving people below 30%. I think we need to be thinking about how do we cross-collateralize or subsidize ELI units. Otherwise, all we're really doing is we're continuing this push of not serving extremely low-income families. And I think that that should be at the core of who we are as a community and as an organization. So I don't think that's a question or it's clearly not a no vote on this proposal. It's much more about, as we think about policy moving forward, there's just a growing number of people that need assistance that we are not helping with this particular development that only has 10% set aside for ELI. That's my editorial. I'm sure Secretary Casper Ramirez can say it much better than I, but I feel many times she and I share the same mission. And if I'm wrong, I ask for putting words in her mouth.
Thank you, Preston. Anyone else have comments? Mr. Russell?
Yes. So first of all, I want to echo Mr. Prince's comments. I agree with everything he said, which is so often the case these days. It scares me. But I just want to call again. I have comments, not any direct questions, but noting that this is identified as being in a low resource area. It strikes me, I always visit these projects, I do Google Earth, I search the area, I look at the facilities, I spend a lot of time with these because I'm an urbanist, by training. And it doesn't strike me as being terribly low opportunity from that standpoint. I will support this project, absolutely. And I just want to point out that the screening mechanism for what equates to low opportunity is not a very refined tool. I will contrast it to the next project, which strikes me as being more representative of what low opportunity looks like. But I certainly will support this, but I think the discussion of how we define low opportunity and how we're directing resources away sometimes from the very communities that very badly need this housing, there's a dynamic tension in some of our intentions and what we're building, and this project is an example of, on the good side, something that made it through the screening process, notwithstanding it being in a low resource area. So I will be supporting the project, and I will be happy to move it if there are no other comments.
Actually, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
And thank you, Katie, for the great presentation. Could someone tell me what the actual cost per unit is? I think I see what it is. I just want to confirm it based on the presentation.
I see that Darren Brabowski of USA Properties has joined us. So Darren, would you like to address that?
Sure. Thank you very much. Darren Bobrowski with USA Properties. I'm a senior vice president here. We're just under just about $419,000 per unit. So given that we have demolition of the building and some other stuff, it's a very reasonably cost project to develop. And just to comment on the low resource area, I agree with you that the maps seem to need some work. If you look at the Santa Rosa area, all of the developed area in the valley of Santa Rosa and Petaluma and Rohnert Park is a low resource area. And when you look at the maps, it's actually the foothills surrounding Santa Rosa that's the high resource area, which doesn't seem like the area that you would want to build in, as it's not close to parks, schools, jobs, and is actually in a high fire danger area. So the maps do need some work. And this is, I pointed out the specific project to TCAC as an example of looking at revising those maps.
Secretary Castro Ramirez.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to share a couple of points. Mr. Preston, thank you so much for your comments. I absolutely agree with you, right, that it is very important that we be mindful of the need for producing deeply affordable housing units. And I absolutely agree that at the federal level, there needs to really be more to augment the number of federal vouchers that are available. And you know, as a state, we are actively involved and engaged in advocating for additional resources. You know, as it relates to this specific project, I do understand that the pre-development and the overall kind of cycle of this project began maybe 3 years ago, and I also understand that this falls within the mixed income portfolio, and so I you know, do support the project. I do think that it addresses some of the core objectives of the MIP program, but to your point, as a state and in partnership with local leaders and housing authorities and others, we do need to do more to increase the number of units that are deeply affordable, that are affordable to working families that are making below 30% of AMI, or you know, families on fixed incomes that are barely able to stay housed. And just as a point of reference, I'll just mention that I think many of you know that the state is administering the rental relief program for about maybe 60 to 65% of the jurisdictions across the state. We have well over 300,000 applications that have come in, about $4 billion in requests, and you know, to date we have paid out about $900 million and have another billion obligated, so we'll be going out in the next few weeks. But the point of this is one, you know, need and what the state is doing to keep people from being evicted, from being displaced, from and really to help families stay housed. But the other point I think that is relevant to what Mr. Preston mentioned is 85% of the families that have applied for assistance are low, very low and extremely low households. So these are households that are making below 50% of AMI. So I think that, you know, just a reminder, right, of we have an affordability housing crisis across the state, but I think it's deeply felt by lower income households. And you know, the governor and this administration is doubling down and doing all we can to get these $22 billion out, as Director Johnson Hall mentioned earlier. And yeah, so I just wanted to provide some additional context, but appreciate your points.
Thank you. Any other board members have comments or questions? Seeing none, is there a motion or?
Mr. Velasquez has his hand up.
I'm sorry, I don't see everyone. Gustavo, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to let everybody know, because this issue of the opportunity maps has come up across our programs, as well as at TCAC and CIDLAC now. And so these maps are becoming more and more a critical tool for funding decisions across all the state programs. And the maps are not perfect, but we are updating the maps as we speak for the 2022 year. This the revised maps will be, if not are yet, going for public comment. So we encourage everybody to know that that these maps will be revised, and invite everybody to comment on what these optics for next year are, because I understand that there's a lot of questions about the differentiation between high and highest opportunity areas and low and lowest opportunity areas, or resource areas. So just wanted to give everybody that update.
And Chair Gunning, if I might have just a moment, and to that end, some of that information Director Velasquez has shared with us, even as recently as last week, I believe it was. And what I mentioned to him and what I'll mention to the board today, the fact is that those at or below 30, 40% AMI, the number is quite astounding. In fact, it's quite compelling. And it's definitely something that I am personally sensitive to. I want to spend just and so I'm open to thinking about this a little bit more and meeting with my staff to see and circling back with my staff on this particular issue. That notwithstanding, I also want to just share that the affordable housing universe is not limited. There are lots of folks at 50 and 60%. I have shared with this group, and I've shared with the board, and I've shared with our staff, but I want to take a few moments to also recognize those folks that sit in the 50 to 60% AMI, which is why we created this program in the first place. I personally have lived experience here. I was that mom. I was that mom with 2 kids with a graduate degree who was struggling once upon a time. And so I understand in ways that many people may not really comprehend how important it is for us to look at those folks as well. That lens was used as we decided and created the MIP program. These are the folks that are too poor to be rich and too rich to be poor. And I don't want us to underestimate or undervalue what they bring. Our role at CalHFA is multifaceted. We've got to do a lot of things for a lot of people. But what I'm grateful for is the partnership that we have with Director Velasquez, the partnership that we have with Secretary Lourdes Castro Ramirez, because that affords us an opportunity to look at this from all levels and see how we might be able to collaborate to address this challenge that we now call affordable housing, but what I used to call life. So we get it. One of the things that I will be doing and what I'm considering is just looking at sort of these policy metrics differently. How do we address these issues? And I do want to see if there might be a way for the chair and the board to consider maybe even collectively thinking about creating just a board, not an ad hoc committee, because I'm not saying that, but maybe an advisory committee to keep us sensitive to
Heard ad hoc. I heard ad hoc.
But to keep us on top of these policy issues. I'm hearing you, I'm feeling you, and I want to put that into action. So more to come on that. I may be reaching out to some of you that I know particularly I'll be reaching out to Secretary Lourdes, but and Stephen and others. But I will be reaching out to many of you to sort of get your insight on what that metric might look like for us, with the hopes of maybe implementing something as in the first quarter. So that's my thought process I wanted to share. I'm definitely sensitive to what you're saying, and I want to see how we might be able to come up with some solutions that are responsive in this regard.
One quick.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Just a comment. Thank you, Tina, for that. I very supportive of this program. I don't think it's not perfect yet, but you know, we clearly can continue to tweak it. I mean, when you look at the rents that are being underwritten here and the percentages of the different unit mixes, the 1s to 3s, as a relative to the market rent, I think that doesn't look too bad, in my opinion, in terms of some of your higher AMI units being 50, 60, maybe 70% of market. I think that's fairly reasonable. You know, it's not 100% of market, but I definitely hear the colleagues on this call in terms of looking at that lower end of the income cohort. But this program, this MIP program, is definitely doing what it set out to do, and we can tweak it in terms of some of the underwriting and make sure that we have a holistic view of how we are approaching the affordable housing challenge from the 0% up to, you know, this workforce housing type AMI cohort. So I'm supportive. That's just a comment. I don't have a question, but thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I recognize we don't have a whole lot of time, so I have heard a lot in my short time here in Santa Clara County that the MIP is the cause of us not being able as a community to get allocation of funding that allows us to kind of meet the needs of our very low income families. And so I would love, Tina, I think ad hoc committees are very useful. And if Chair Gunning so chooses, I would be happy to serve on something like that to kind of look at the data and kind of reflect on things. I think that there are probably some unintended consequences around the MIP that, as I say, I've heard, I don't really quite understand. But with that, I would be happy to make the motion to approve this resolution or this investment.
Great. Thank you, Preston. Is there a second?
This is Mr. Russell. I'm happy to second.
There's been a motion and a second. Melissa, a roll call?
Certainly. Ms. Avila Farias?
Yes.
Ms. Gallagher?
Yes.
Ms. Gunn?
Yes.
Mr. Gunning?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter? Sorry, Mr. Hunter is still absent. Mr. Starr?
Aye.
Director Velasquez?
Aye.
Secretary Castro Ramirez?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Ms. Sotelo?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Resolution 21-18 is approved.
Thank you.
Is that someone talking? All right, Kate, let's move on to the next one. Oakley or Elm Lane. Sounds like a TV show.
I think you're muted, Ms. Ferguson.
I thought you meant me, Stephen. You there, Kate?
Try unmuting yourself again, Kate. Her audio just went out. No, we can't hear you still, Kate.
You got it, Mark? What's up?
She's unmuted on our end. She's green, but something with her computer. Kate,
We might ask Kate, sorry, I was gonna say we might ask Kate to call in on her phone and we could hear her that way.
Yeah, do you want to try calling in, Kate?
Mark, Kate needs the number.
Is there someone else that can go through the presentation while we're waiting for her to call in?
So Mr. Gunning, Chair Gunning, we could take up the agenda item number 2, approval of the September 23rd meeting minutes.
That's a wonderful idea, Melissa. As Melissa has said, we still need to approve our September 23rd minutes. So with that, go ahead, Melissa.
Did anyone have any edits or changes to those meeting minutes?
This is Chris. I thought we just accept those if there are no comments. Are we changing?
Right, so Chair Gunning, we could just do, as long as no one has any changes, we can just affirm their approval.
By acclamation, yeah.
Thank you.
Let's do that then. So approved. Kate, are you back now? Okay, Frances, you may have to jump in here.
Hello, Chairman. Can you hear me?
You ready?
Yes.
Why don't you go ahead, Frances?
Always. I just need to share my screen before I get started. I think I need to get permission to do that.
Mark, do it.
Okay.
We'll have that for you in just a moment, Francesca.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I don't see it. Oh, I see it now. Okay. So. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
You got it. You're good.
So.
Can you hear me? Sorry, testing.
Oh.
Now they can hear me? Okay.
Yeah, hang on, Kate.
Okay. Chairman, okay.
Finish, Frances, finish.
Okay, great. So good morning, Chairman, members of the board, Executive Director, CalHFA colleagues, and members of the public that are listening in. It's good to see all of you today. I'm going to be providing you an update on the state and federal legislative arenas with a special focus on the federal side, given the crucial moment we are right now in negotiations in Congress on reconciliation legislation. So before I dive in, I would like to give a special thanks to Courtney Bond for her invaluable help in tracking hundreds of bills throughout the year, and a lot of other legislative work she's helped with, as well as the rest of the CalHFA team in helping with legislative analysis and legislative outreach. And now I'll start with the legislative update. Can you all keep switching? But I think, okay, you can all see the state slide. There's a lot of bills in here, and in the interest of time, I'm not going to go over every single one of them, but in the handout section of the webinar, you'll see a handout called 2001 California Housing Initiative Legislation. That is a one-pager that our marketing team has designed for you to get a kind of a picture of the most relevant housing bills this year in just one page. And it tracks this presentation as well, the same sections. So that's a good reference document. And before I start with the individual bills, like where are we in the legislative year? So on October 10th, the legislative calendar came to a full circle when the governor completed his signing and vetoing of bills on his desk. So just a reminder, we are on a 2-year legislative calendar. There's the 2021, 2022 calendar. So a lot of the bills that didn't make it this year, we might see in January. So with the results now fully in for 2021, we can say it's been another milestone year in housing. And I know a lot of the people on this call were actually at the signing ceremony with the governor. Some very exciting pieces of legislation. And the most significant one, the one that's gotten the most attention, is SB 9, that prohibits or bans single-family zoning in California as we know it. This bill is by President Pro Tem Atkins, and it allows 4 units to be built in single-family parcels. It's very, very significant because we're only the second state to have something like this in law. The first was Oregon, and there's a lot of other bills in the land use and planning arena. I'm not going to go over all of them. Senator Wiener did have 2 very significant bills as well, which promote a smaller scale density, and they're right here. And then in other land use and planning bills, I'll simply mention that, let me go here. I'll simply mention that HCD does have a number of very significant planning bills this year, strengthening enforcement of the housing goals for jurisdictions that are not meeting their housing goals. There's a bill creating a surplus land unit at HCD as well, and there is a bill updating and modernizing HCD's statewide housing plan. So a lot of significant HCD legislation this year. Again, the flyer has the full list of bills, but in the next section, housing finance, the bill that I'd like to highlight is AB 447 by Grayson that updates the TCAC definition. So the definition of preservation, and what's significant about this bill is that it opens the door for adaptive reuse projects in the new 500 million state low-income housing tax credit program. So that's pretty significant. And before I actually jump, I'd like to go back for a second, because I just realized there is one bill that is of special significance to CalHFA that's in the land use area that I forgot to mention. This bill is AB 787, which allows moderate and above moderate income housing, de-restricted income housing, to be counted as part of RHNA as long as it is 10% below market rate. So given the CalHFA serves a broad range of incomes, this is something that I thought would be interested in. Are you seeing my slide? It seems like it keeps bouncing back to not the kind of slide mode, but I'll just click through it like this. So I already mentioned the housing finance. I won't go into every single bill, but on the home ownership front, I'd like to highlight some bills as well. There are bills that seek to curb discrimination and bias in the appraisal and in the with realtors. But one bill that's very significant for our work too is that the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities program at the Strategic Growth Council now is required to include a homeownership component. So that's something that will be hopefully working with our partners at SGC closely. And then lastly, because I do want to focus most of my presentation on the federal level, I did want to mention there's a significant ADU bill that I wanted to highlight, that is AB 345. Obviously, CalHFA is now very invested in the ADU space. This bill is pretty specific. It's a Habitat for Humanity bill, and what it does is it allows for ADUs to be sold separately from the primary residence if very specific conditions are met. And those specific conditions is that the ADU be developed by a nonprofit, and that the ADU have affordability restrictions attached to it. And there's some other more technical requirements for this bill. So that concludes the very quick state update that I have. Again, I think the flyer is a really good resource. Marketing put some really good work into that, and it's in the handout section. And then on left,
Where is it, Frances? Because that is a nice piece, and I think the board should see that, or at least have access to that summary page you created.
yes, of course. So if you see under that, there's like a handouts tab in the go to webinar kind of tool panel. There's a handouts tab, and there is a document, a PDF that starts 2021 CA Housing Initiatives -legislation.
Okay, got it.
That's the one. And I can also email it to the board member if that's helpful.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's very helpful, and I think it will benefit from it. Yes, thank you.
Great. So just moving on to
questions. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, no. If you want to ask questions about the state, I can pause for a minute, and we can do it that way. Yeah.
That's what I was giving everyone an opportunity to do. All right, keep going.
So now I'll turn to federal, which is where really the action is these days. And I'm sure you have all heard about the infrastructure and social spending bills in Congress. And CalHFA has been actively and heavily negotiating certain housing components in these bills, specifically in the social spending bill, referred to as the reconciliation bill. And we are really at a crucial juncture. This changes kind of minute by minute, right? And a couple of days ago, people seemed a little bit more optimistic than yesterday, and I'm sure it will change again. But we really are at a crucial juncture where the president and legislative leadership is looking to finalize at least like the top level framework of this bill, of the reconciliation bill, which will unlock both bills that I'll explain right now in the next couple of days, the next week, or at the latest, by the end of the month. I'll just caveat that by saying we've heard this before, and they have had self-imposed deadlines that they have burned through, but there really does seem to be kind of generally, an increase in kind of the negotiating activity. And we're part of several coalitions that are pushing for these key items, and they are communicating to us that this precise week and today, tomorrow, are very key days to do advocacy. So what exactly is being negotiated? Because this is just like a very, very sprawling negotiation with different linked parts, and I just want to kind of give a little bit of context. So there's two main bills, two separate pieces of legislation that are linked together through the negotiation. Like they both have to happen, or neither one of them happens, right? That's kind of the political arrangement that's emerged. The first one is an infrastructure bill. Sometimes you'll hear it referred to as the bipartisan infrastructure framework that's been negotiated mostly in the Senate. That bill is bipartisan. It has the votes to go. It's much smaller. It's only 550 billion in new spending. Sometimes you'll hear it quoted as 1 trillion. That's because sometimes they count current spending, but significantly there's no housing in there, right? Now, the bill that we've been focused on, it's usually referred to as the reconciliation bill. It's called, now it has a bill number, and it's called the Building Back Better Act. And it is a dem-only bill. The strategy is to advance it through the reconciliation process. So it's, there's no need for bipartisan votes on this bill. And the original proposal had a price tag that is much higher than the other one. It's 3.5 trillion. And the kind of overall price tag is one of kind of the main sticking points of the negotiation between the different Democratic factions. Current negotiations peg this, and this has already been kind of outdated since I prefer this slide, because I'm hearing now like 1.75, closer to that, and 2. It's somewhere between 1.75 and 2. But what does this mean if the programs that were included in the 3.5 trillion legislation, then when you have to kind of fit them into 2 trillion, that's a 40% cut. And so, are there going to be across the board cuts by 40%? Are they going to shorten the duration of a lot of the programs? Because this is a 10-year bill. the reconciliation. We had a 10-year horizon. Or are there going to be winners and losers, with some things being cut completely and some things being preserved, more or less like they are in the current House text? So these are all crucial questions that we're seeking answers to, and that are the subject of negotiations. And just to give you a little flavor of what, so it's not so abstract, the infrastructure bill, roads, bridges, clean water, right? No housing. The reconciliation bill, you've heard about the extension of the childcare tax credit, really important, paid family leave, free community college, expansions of Medicare. There's a lot of, it's a big bill with a heavy focus on the social safety net, on social spending, right? And housing is a part of that. It's a significant part of that, although it's gotten a little bit less attention in the general kind of media. So the reconciliation bill, there's two parts of it that we are interested in. There's the ways and means part of it. There's two committees within the House of Representatives that authored two different sections of it that deal with housing. One is the Taxation Committee, which is called Ways and Means, and the other one is the Financial Services Committee, chaired by our California Representative Maxine Waters, that has jurisdiction over HUD and kind of traditional housing, right? I'm going to start with Ways and Means because our kind of surgical focus has been on the low-income housing tax credit and the related bond provisions, right? That's kind of where the HFAs are a little louder. The broader housing world, and some of our colleagues here on this call have also been advocating for some of the other items. But really, like the item that we've been sort of creating a drumbeat about, and that our delegation is really engaged on, is lowering the 50% test on private activity bonds. And so what this is, this is probably the most important proposal to California housing right now. So given its significance, I've included a handout from the Affordable Housing Tax Credit Coalition, which is national advocacy organization we're part of, and this explains what the lowering of the 50% is in 2 pages. It's really good, and it's also in the handout section. It's called Housing Credit 50% Test .pdf, and this proposal addresses directly what is the number one bottleneck to finance more affordable housing in California, and that bottleneck is the federally imposed $4 billion limit we have on issuing more tax-exempt bonds. So what this does is it reduces the threshold of private activity bonds that are needed to generate these valuable 4% tax credits. So it reduces it from the current 50% of the project's cost. 50% of the project cost has to be covered with tax-exempt bonds. Now under this proposal, it will be just 25. And so what that means, just kind of very logically, is that you can fund twice the amount of projects. If you're a bond constrained state, of course, right? Because if you're not a bond, if you're not using if we weren't using our full $4 billion, then this proposal wouldn't be as impactful to California, right? So just to get a sense of scale, like the select system produces 17,000 units a year. If this passes, we'll see how much time it takes to, the market to adapt, etc. But potentially you could be talking about doubling that. So 17,000 more in addition to the 17,000 that are produced right now. There's, I should also mention, in the Ways and Means text, we got 7 years of this lower test. We were asking for 10. Some people thought that we should get 2 or 3. We got 7. That's pretty good. That's been one of our main talking points. This should be like a long term. It's in the world of reconciliation negotiations, 7 years is pretty long term, and that allows enough time for the market to kind of adapt to this new kind of model of financing, and for it really to take hold. And then we ask for an extension 7 years from now. But the last thing I'd mention about this, this proposal is our number one proposal, is that as good as it is, kind of a relatively minor problem that will emerge if this happens is that there'll be like a gap between the tax-exempt debt that these projects got under the 50% test and the tax-exempt debt that they'll be able to get under the 25% test. So that's where our recycle bond program comes in, and we've been ramping it up very quickly, engaged in local partnerships to ramp it up even more. And the recycle bonds could really help plug that gap in tax-exempt debt. So that's something that is kind of relevant to CalHFA. And before I move on, this has been our #1 priority, legislative priority at all levels of government for the last, since I've been here practically in the job. So we're hopeful, optimistic, but also cautious, because the negotiations are very fluid, and a lot of things that are out right now, there's pressure to put them back in, and they have to make the numbers match. So we're doing our part to make sure that the California delegation knows how important this is, and we're also cognizant that there are other priorities both in housing and otherwise. But I think that the thing that I'd like to mention is that especially in housing, this proposal is really foundational, and allows you to build some of the other housing items. For instance, we really want there to be a significant amount of vouchers in the bill, but while vouchers help pay for the rent of people experiencing homelessness, there will be no new units built or no additional new units over the current system built if we don't get this proposal, right? So we see this this proposal as a kind of basic layer that a lot of the other housing proposals can build upon as well. And because California is part of just a handful of bond constrained states, the benefit to California, the benefit would be kind of disproportionately to California, right? We would get a really good share of this proposal. Then I'd like to go over some of the other items as well. The other kind of the second biggest item in there is an expansion of the 9% tax credit ceiling, and you'll see there's a really good graph that Nuva Gradic designed to illustrate this. There's like a phase-in for this the increase in the 9% ceiling. Overall, when fully phased in, it's 60% more in the 9% program. The 9% program, if you talk about 10-year amounts, TCAC usually talk about 1-year amounts, but really 10-year credit, the amount of the equity the projects get, it's about $1 billion program, and so this is about 600 million more, a little bit more than that actually, and it's about 2,400 units a year. So very important as well. I think California has been a little bit more focused on the other item, because this the share, the scale that California would get of the other one is bigger, and also the other one is more California specific. This one is a little bit more national. But these are some very important items as well. Also, like tech improvements that are actually kind of relevant to the conversation that we were just having on the ELI components of projects. The Ways and Means Tax actually provides a 50% basis boost for projects that have an ELI component. And so this means just more credits per project, and it would just be a very powerful proposal. And then it also includes a couple of state determined basis boosts, so they wouldn't happen automatically. It would be up to TCAC to establish optional basis boosts of 30% more for either 40% projects or rural projects or projects in Indian areas. All of them if they need it for financial feasibility. And then also kind of on the kind of tax credit world affecting light tech, there's some really interesting climate provisions in there that make the renewable energy tax credit and the solar investment tax credit work a lot better with light tech, but I won't get into those because it gets pretty technical. But outside of light tech, there are other housing related tax credit provisions that are actually really interesting as well. The most exciting one is something that the housing community has been asking for a long time, which is used to be referred to as the Neighborhood Homes Investment Act. Now here in this bill is called the Neighborhood Homes Tax Credit, and it's essentially a brand new program modeled loosely on light tech, but focused on rehabbing deteriorated homes in distressed communities. So that's something that also has, I mean, while it doesn't have the coalition of kind of the 50% test, there's also a lot of folks advocating for this out there. And I think there's a decent chance that we might see something. I don't know the funding level that it will end up getting, but there's maybe some something to kind of get a foothold for this new program. And there's expansion and extension of the new markets tax credit, and there's changes to the historic tax credit to make it work better with FlightTech. And then I'll turn to financial services, because while we've been focused on this 50% test and ways it means, from a dollar perspective, the amounts in financial services are actually much bigger than the amounts in ways it means for housing. So out of the $3.5 trillion bill, the way they divvy it up, there's $330 million, and in this committee, in this part of the text, that's the vast majority is for HUD administered programs. And so there's 80 billion in there to preserve public housing. There's 75 million for housing choice vouchers, a big portion of that targeted for homelessness, 15 billion for project-based rental assistance, 35 billion for home. That's something that the housing community really asked for really loudly as well. 37 billion for the housing trust fund, 10 billion for a new CDFI fund, which I know is of keen interest to a lot of our members here as well. And I want to kind of stop. I mean, I know that and our partners at HCD and others in this call are been engaged in some of these items, but specifically to CalHFA, there's a smaller item in here. There's a 10 billion first generation down payment assistance program that I think deserves a little bit more attention from us. And I've actually been talking to the financial services staff about it. It's really interesting. It'd be the first program of its kind, right? At least at the national level, and it's $10 billion. It'd be divvied up with a majority going to states. It just says states in the bill. It doesn't specify what entity would receive it. And then there would be a component of it, a smaller component of it that would go out to CDFIs competitively and other entities. And so this will be used. It's a down payment assistance program, and it will be used for people that attest that they are first generation home buyers, which means that they are neither parent has previously owned a home, right? So this is something that's kind of given our mission at CalHFA. It's really exciting. We have a lot of ideas about how this can be implemented, and just to kind of go over some of the other kind of parameters, you'll be giving up to 10% of the assistance of the purchase price of a home, or 20,000, whichever one is greater. But there is a provision in there for HUD to increase that maximum in economically disadvantaged, for the economically disadvantaged home buyers. And it's also a grant. So this I think has the potential to be a very impactful program, and be very eager to kind of work with it if it does end up in the final bill. But again, as with so many other things, given that the price tag is going down, we are not sure about where this is going to end up. And then there's like a plethora of other programs here that are smaller yet equally significant to many of the needs that these programs address, and I have them here. I can also send you this presentation. It's a good reference document, but I'll stop there. I know I probably gone over my time. To see if you have any questions, I want to open it up for discussion. Thank you so much.
No, great presentation. You hear high level from news, but that's why I wanted folks to see this, that there's a lot in these congressional bills that you just never hear about with this kind of detail. Thank you, Frances. I am very conscious of everyone's time, and I know some of us have to leave. So Kate, are you able to?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go.
Okay, I'll go.
Go.
Elm Lane Apartments. I'm here to present Elm Lane loan package for final approval by the board. I have Ruth Vakili
our loan officer, Shinako, our credit officer, and several representatives from Anton Devco, who is the developer on this project. Next slide. Elm Lane is a family new construction mixed income project with 6 three-story walk-up buildings and 1 community building to be located in Oakley and Contra Costa County. It consists of 170 residential units, 84 one-bedroom, 42 two-bedroom, and 44 three-bedroom units. The rents will be restricted between 30 and 70% of area median income. 10% of the units will be restricted at 30% AMI. 10% will be at 50% AMI, 53% will be at 60% AMI, and 25% will be at 70% AMI. There will also be 260 parking spaces, which will be reserved exclusively for use by the residents, their guests, and on-site staff. Next slide, please. CalHFA is proposing a $35,350,000 permanent first lien loan with a term of 17 years amortized over 35 years at an estimated interest rate of 3.95. Again, that includes our cushion of 25 basis points for underwriting purposes. In addition, we're proposing a $6 million MIP subsidy loan with a term of 17 years at an interest rate the greater of 1% simple interest or AFR in effect at the time of the MIP closing. Tax credit equity of approximately $24 million will be provided by Raymond James, and the construction lender is Citibank. Based on the appraisal report dated 9/1/21, the capture rate for this project is 0.8%, which is very low and indicative of the great need in this market. Lease up is expected to occur within 8 months of completion, which is very quick. Next slide, please. Elm Lane is located at 5301 Elm Lane, City of Oakley, Contra Costa County, as you can see, close to Pittsburgh and Brentwood. This is considered part of the East Bay geographic region at CIDLAC. The project received $33.9 million of bond cap from CIDLAC and approximately $25 million of 4% federal credits and $1.4 million of state credits. These were received from TCAC during the second round allocations, which took place on August 11th, 2021. Next slide, please. The site is 6.44 acres located on the west end of Elm Lane. It's located within a low resource area per the TCAC HCD opportunity map. The project is close, within less than 2 miles to grocery stores, public transit, parks and recreation, schools, police stations, and retail. Next slide, please. The existing site consists of 2 existing market rate residential structures. The seller will manage and pay for relocation of existing tenants existing residents prior to construction loan closing. The existing structures will be demolished during the construction period as part of the development plan. Next slide, please. I wanted to walk you through you can see our strengths here. We have 1 underwriting exception. The strengths of the project include the fact that the developer is deferring almost $4 million in developer fees, which will be available to fund additional cushion during the construction period. The tax credits generated by the project will fund approximately 34% of total development costs. Exit analysis assumes our regular, very conservative exit analysis, and that it shows that the entirety of both the perm loan and the subsidy loan will be able to be repaid without any general partner contribution. Our underwriting exception on this is that the borrower has proposed operating expenses per unit approximately 9% below TCAC operating expense limits. The recent appraisal supports this, as does TCAC and the investor, and the borrower has provided us with evidence of their ability to manage at these expense levels on comparable properties. Next slide, please. Wait. Oh. There are 2 primary weaknesses that we identified in the staff report. The first one is that
This is a new deal for us. We have not done business with this developer. Well, I'm not sure that's really a weakness. I think it's great for us to be doing business with new partners. It is something we haven't worked with them before. Although they have no experience with CalHFA, they have extensive experience in developing similar type projects. They've completed 50 projects over 9,000 units, 17 of which include 2,500 units of affordable housing. Also, a pre-demolition asbestos and lead-based survey report confirmed the presence of asbestos-containing materials and lead-based paint at the existing structures. Remediation of all of this will be included as part of the construction plan and budget. Next slide, please. And that's, sorry to go so quickly, but that concludes the presentation. We'd be happy to take any questions.
Mr. Chairman, this is Preston. I would move for approval of this proposal, of this resolution.
Thank you, Preston.
Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Russell.
If I would like to, I think I will offer a second, but I do just want to make comments. As so many of these projects we see before us, it highlights a policy. And in this case, this looks like a low opportunity area. It is, in fact, identified as such. To me, there are concerns that I would hope we would address in future projects, that the vicinity, the proximity of the school is severely impacted by the lack of continuous sidewalks. There's a lot of light industrial and agricultural uses in between, so that the exposure of children to those kinds of conditions are problematic. And location next to the highway, these are things that I hope that we would look at in future projects. Again, I don't tank things at the last minute. I don't see this as so egregious, but I think we should be thoughtful about how we place these projects and the hazards that might exist. A mile to a school is more than a mile if the kids have to go through either compromised lands or not have sidewalks, not have a safe route. So with those comments, I will second Mr. Prince's motion.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Any other comments or questions from board members? Great, hearing a motion and a second. Melissa?
Yes, Ms. Avila Farias. I'm not hearing Ms. Avila Farias. Ms. Gallagher?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Avila Farias also says yes. Ms. Gunn?
Yes.
Mr. Gunning?
Yes.
Mr. Hunter? Sorry, Mr. Hunter is still absent. Mr. Starr?
Yes.
Director Velasquez?
Aye.
Secretary Castro Ramirez?
Yes.
Mr. Prince?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Ms. Sotelo?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Resolution 21-19 is approved.
Awesome. Thank you. Want to draw everyone's attention to the normal information reports under agenda item number 8, particularly multifamily and single-family loan production. Any questions or comments from board members before we move to public comment? All right, seeing none, is there any members of the public who want to comment?
So if members of the public are interested in providing public comment at this time, please raise your hand and we will recognize you. I do not see any hands raised at this time.
Great. I know Mr. Russell's left, but I want to just thank the board for participation today and those comments. I really like how we're beginning to think about how our projects are approved, folks. So I really enjoyed the conversation and look forward to the next meeting. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Wait, is that a formation of an ad hoc committee then?
No, Preston.
I'm trying to get one like for us.
Work within the confines.
Thank you, everybody. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.